Greetings, this is DJ Debbie on Resonance 104.4 FM London-wide and all the W's.resonancefm.com worldwide. And yeah, this being the month of March, or even if it isn't, there's Women's Time is Any Time. This programme is entitled Every Picture Tells a Story, Women in Politics Now, or the politics of representation, all sorts of things like this. And I have a studio full of guests today from Ella Phillips from the October Gallery.
Hello.
Louisa and Chloe from DARTER.
Hello. Hello.
Which is always presented in capitals, and I expect they'll tell us why in a bit. The occasion for this, as if we needed any excuse at all, is because Saturday gone, today being the 28th of March, on the 24th of March, there was a symposium with the same name in the wonderful October Gallery, which exhibits art from all four corners or all compass points, the world being round, of the most brilliant artists, some just discovered, some that they've had a relationship with from a long, long, long time from the gallery was opened. And a significant part of the gallery is the education department, which is so prestigious that it's actually been one of those consulted for the Global Citizen Programme for students, young people in schools. So, and DARTER are an organisation that have had commissions with Whitechapel, with pretty serious institutions, not being daunted by that. They take a very playful stance and intervene in surprising ways, as they will also tell us. I'm going to start, before we talk any further, with music from a group called Yuya, who played a very significant part at the symposium as well. So hopefully, after that silence at the start of the show when technicals got the better of various people, let's launch you with Yuya. Okay, never mind. We shall proceed anyway. So, Ella, I think you're the best person to start with. This symposium, Every Picture Tells a Story, Women in Politics Now. I know that the image, that the picture that the story was around to start off proceedings was one of Palestinian artist Layla Shawer's brilliant installations, her exhibition, The Other Side of Paradise being Gaza, and those in Gaza can only look over the wall at the paradise that was their land before certain things took place. And this is, it's a female mannequin. It has no arms, it has no legs, it has no head. It does have a female form, and there's 3 or 4 of these within the exhibition, and they're quite highly sexualized and decorated, and a key part of them is the decorated quasi simulated Semtex box, because they show female suicide bombers. So in themselves they are pretty strong images, because Layla explores the disposability of women with suicide bombers, that she feels that it's an excuse for families. It's a kind of glorified honour killing, and pretty stern. But this picture, this symposium, why?
Well, we found out that it was Women's History Month from a visitor to the gallery, and we'd never heard of it before. So
it's going up.
So we decided to
That's why.
yeah.
Start again. So
we found out. Yeah, we found out that it was Women's History Month from a visitor to the gallery, and we'd never heard of it before. And I realised that we were going to have Layla Shawer showing at the gallery, and seeing we had a a female artist and it was Women's History Month, it might be nice to marry the two together. Layla's work is really powerful and explores quite complicated ideas, and I'm not sure how much she agrees with Women's History Month as a concept, and she's quite keen for there not to be a dedication of one portion of the month to this group, and for women to not be defined as victims and to not accept victimhood. It was really interesting hearing her talk. And we took one image from her exhibition and we sent it to each of our guest speakers, hoping to get this variety of narrative from them that's been inspired by the artwork and relates to women and politics. And we felt that the artwork we chose really opened up possibilities. It had the female form, it had floral design on it, it had a grenade draped over it. There was a lot of things that could trigger ideas for people, so we chose that as our key picture, and then we waited to hear the different stories that came out from that.
Any that stood out particularly?
Well, it was really interesting to hear everyone's viewpoint, and so DARTER had this interesting mix of performance and sort of academic exploration of this concept of being a female artist. We had Benjamin Zephaniah presented really powerful sort of story about his mother and his own experience of violence towards his mother and himself being violent towards women and how he challenged himself with that. We heard about Zawe Ashton, an up-and-coming actress, and her attitude towards acting and the challenges that she faces as well. And I mean, Layla spoke about what it was like to be a Palestinian woman and living in a war zone. It was really great. Everything sort of built together, and a nice rhythm to the day, I thought.
Yeah, I came in at the tail end and I felt that there was a huge atmosphere in the room, that there was people were actually being far more honest. I mean, from the platform than I've ever really heard people sharing innermost things. Just quickly, you said you hadn't heard of Women's History Month. No, I mean, there's International Women's Day. I didn't know we'd been awarded a month. It probably carries the same kind of controversy as Black History Month. We kind of, it's a fine excuse to shine the spotlight, but at the same time, hey, why?
Yeah.
Why should we need it?
Accept this one month? And that was one of our questions that we posed the guest speakers. Do we need to? Should we accept it? And it was interesting because I felt that people thought that maybe we do need it now, but it would be good to not have to need it. And so I don't know when we choose whether we don't need it again. We'll see.
We'll see, yeah. And so, DARTER, we've had this name. Well, I mentioned it, Ella mentioned it, and there's intrigue about what you do. So, in a short nutshell, tell us what DARTER is.
So
this is Louisa.
We're three artists: Phoebe Davies, Chloe Cooper, and Louisa Martin. That's me. And Chloe's with us in the studio, and Phoebe's due to join us at some point during this show. We started collaborating a couple of years ago. We already knew each other through an artist kind of discussion group that had been continuing, and it was out of that we kind of begun a mentoring project where we wanted to share the benefits that we'd found from having discussions with peers and the kind of support network that you can create yourself that maybe we were missing from once we'd left education. So as a result, after creating this mentoring project, we were approached by Whitechapel Art Gallery to spend a year in a school as artists in residence, and then following that to create some work for an exhibition. So three of us three, took that on and needed a name. And I think it took us about 2 months of heated discussion to pin something down.
Heated discussion.
Yeah, that we
Passionate.
felt could represent the three of us in a way that wasn't too closed down or wasn't too leading or...
Definitely, and we did bring up the idea of being able to kind of transcend our gender. Maybe if we should take this as an opportunity to do that or not. So, there were loads of debates around what kind of word we should choose or name for ourselves to represent ourselves.
So you chose DARTER, and you always write it in capitals, so it really stands out.
Yeah.
So
I can't remember when we started doing that or why, but we've stuck to it.
Yeah. Not really. I mean, it might be kind of in response to performance art history, like Valley Export. She's an artist who capitalised, uppercased her taken name, and so it'll definitely reference back to that.
So, yeah, because the way you describe yourselves, your mission with the playful interpretation and turning institutions and meanings on their heads, that actually does reference quite far back to the kind of 70s happening. So I guess you're placing yourself in that stream. So how did you apply this to the symposium? What did you do?
Oh, good question. So we had several elements. I began with a kind of introduction in which I just kind of said some anecdotes that summed up the kind of subtle tyrannies that exist in the kind of day-to-day experience of being an artist and being female, and what that brings up, things to do with motherhood and the possibility of being a mother and an artist, and that being seen as something that's not necessarily viable even now. Also, Chloe, maybe you want to say what you...
Yeah, cool, thanks. So after Louise's really great introduction, which was kind of situated where we position ourselves as female artists within art history, I then chose to take Layla's kind of provocation, the provocation that had been given us by Ella of Layla's work, of this torso, and I related that to 3 proto-urban human figurines from southern Jordan, which are on display at the British Museum. And I chose to have a look at the definition or maybe the interpretation that these objects are given by the museum. So the museum says that they're made of unfired clay and that 2 of them are clearly male, whereas the third may either be female or it may have just lost a small piece of clay. So I was working with this definition of female and the fact that a big, huge national institution of the British Museum, like the meaning-making institution that it is, chose to define women as kind of other to male or lacking something, as if akin to just losing a piece of clay, as in a penis. So I discussed that, tried to make it like quite humorous as well, and used lots of objects. So I then kind of followed on that initial description by using objects like a yogurt pot and a parrot. The image of a parrot that was on a photocopy acetate box, a box of acetates that you can photocopy onto, and kind of try to describe how I was feeling. So I felt a certain way, like as this yogurt pot was being catapulted in the air. Oh, thank you. Debbie's telling me to look forward. So
directional mics and all of that. Yeah.
And as meaningful as the parrot that was on the acetate box. And then I finished off by trying to kind of embody that piece of clay, so embody all this masculinity that I was lacking, and thinking about how that would affect my practice and how I could try to make my practice more masculine, because I felt that was what I could do to make it better.
Better.
Yeah. Which I then, wanted to put up as a kind of challenge.
Interesting that there's one of the creation myths is that actually there's a beautiful story called Clay Woman, that actually people were all made from this clay, from this woman of clay.
Yeah.
And it divided out and went in different directions and assumed different characteristics and the colours that are associated in origin in different places. We'll maybe explore that in another programme, creation myths, because yes, so the missing piece of clay and the gender definition of art, or overridingly female, overridingly male, are these things that really do strike chords? I mean, does art have a gender?
I think it's similar to what the politician Sally Jimson was saying about not having a lot of one of our other guest speakers, about not having a lot of female politicians from over 100 years ago to look up to as role models or icons. And I think in the canon of art history, what you're taught, and the more accessible artists tend to be male, and that must inevitably put a spin on how you interpret your own work as a female artist, I think.
Definitely.
Yeah, I mean, what I talked about after Chloe's presentation was sorry, a kind of a fictional framework that I'm using at the moment, which I think is stemming from my own way of trying to understand this feeling that I have of drawing on a male influence when I create work. So the fictional framework includes this, I guess, story about a woman who thinks she's a man. It's a male physicist, and it's not really dealing with, I guess it's more dealing with our idea of ourselves and our association of what are male qualities and what are female qualities, and the fact that actually we perhaps draw on both, and that those are interchangeable or not as fixed as we might.
I mean, it's the fact that there are male and female hormones and things that make up a person to be defined, or physically certainly defined as male or female. It's debatable then the characteristics beyond of, I don't know, nurturing or aggression, whether those have a gender or not.
We looked up, because we were talking about this idea of femininity and masculinity, and before the interview we looked up the definition for feminine and masculine, because we were thinking, is it necessarily tied to your gender? Can it not be separate from being female or male? And what are the characteristics? And we found that feminine was described as pretty and delicate, I think, and
delicacy.
and relating to being female, and masculine was strength and aggression and relating to being male. So
in what dictionary?
Chloe's,
on my laptop.
dictionary.
Who keys this in? Indeed. Yeah. So accepted things that are floating out literally in the cloud stratosphere do
we were
define.
surprised by that, because we thought that maybe the words feminine and masculine could be separate from gender, and we were interested in what the characteristics are, but obviously they're very much tied.
Yeah, I was getting excited.
Yeah.
A new possibility for describing, but no.
I mean, a strand that went throughout this symposium that was very strongly presented by one of the guests was this notion of people being trans, of not actually in themselves or requiring the world to define them. How do you feel that simmered?
I mean, for me, that was particularly interesting because it kind of highlighted the need to self-represent and to. I mean, it's important that we are able to self-represent.
Yeah, and what was really interesting J.L. Moret, who was a representative from Tea House, who was there, which is a transgender support, a trans support network. She was talking about this idea of you existing on two kind of planes, the physical state that you're born in and then how you identify yourself, and she defined herself as trans, so not male, not female, but trans, and that this is a new way of being. This is a category or a definition in itself, and that it's not as simple as being male or female. And that was really interesting to hear about, and she was great. She was really open about her personal experiences.
Yeah, I found the whole thing really a very personal sharing. What did you want to get out of an encounter like that, with a panel of interesting guests and an animation way of expanding it, and this very strong image in the room? What was the drive to present a symposium like that?
Well, on one level, I just thought it'd be something I'd be really interested in, and as the education coordinator, I get to programme things that would interest me, so that's great. I also